Hey everybody, it's Dr. Ben Rawl, and excited to be with you today. We're going to be talking about health. We're going to be talking about healing. I'm going to probably introduce you to a word today that some of you might not ever have heard of. And we're going to talk about what it means to you. And hopefully this video just kind of helps some things make sense for you, helps you understand your health, understands healing. What's interesting about health and healing is sometimes I think about it's like money. You know, we spend money every day. We use money. We buy a cup of coffee. We buy gas. Yet maybe a lot of us don't really understand money, right? So a lot of times, of course, we live in our bodies, we experience health, we wake up, we eat some food, we go to bed, we kind of do okay, yet we don't really think about it all that much until, of course, something seems to go wrong or we're not feeling well. So I want to introduce you to some of those concepts today and just really take some time to walk through health and healing and have a good foundation. Now, I guess I maybe would compare it to like our faith. If you're watching this and you're a person of faith, a believer in Jesus Christ, it's really important that you have a good foundation. Now, there's a lot of different principles and amazing stories and concepts in the scriptures, but if you don't have that foundation, then it might not make sense and it certainly won't be as valuable. Matter of fact, you might end up missing the whole thing. So the same thing can happen with health. So one of the things I want to talk about today is this word of vitalism. Right? I'll just say Vitalism 101. Now, if I was going to contrast vitalism, I would contrast it against the term maybe mechanism, mechanistic. That word makes a little more sense. Think of mechanism like a car, right? Parts and pieces. So when something goes wrong with your car, you go to a mechanic, and they look at it and they say, hey, you need a new engine, a new set of brakes. Now, we all know that cars, although they're amazing, we all know they're just a machine, right? Cars aren't self-healing, self-regulating. If somebody kicks a dent in your door, you don't walk out the next day and expect for it to be spontaneously healed. Yet when we think about things that are alive, organisms, and again, the human body, it says created in his likeness and image. Now, God made everything and he made things amazing, but it says that when it comes to humans, that's something unique. He didn't say I made horses in my likeness and image. He didn't make waterfalls and flowers and frogs in his likeness and image. He made humans. Okay, so this is an important distinction. So what vitalism really means is this idea that you're more than the sum of your parts. You're more than just a body. Matter of fact, think about it in real simple terms. If there was a live body and a dead body, right here, they have the same parts and pieces, right? They have a brain, they have a heart, they have a stomach, they have hands and legs and things like that, yet one's alive and one is dead. Well, that healing power, that vitalism is what I want to talk about today. And so the reason this matters is because when we think about healing, it really matters of what's your perspective. When we think about even this idea of truth, the question is, it depends on their perspective. So I have kind of a funny little drawing here, right? And it's showing, hey, depending on where you're standing, okay, from this perspective, it's going to look different than it is over here. And this we've seen be really frustrating. Maybe you've been through some trials in your life. Maybe you've had struggles with your health. And so talking about healing doesn't really seem like it's been part of your life. Maybe you've experienced some significant traumas, maybe accidents, maybe even things from birth. And it can be really overwhelming to you. And so when we start talking about health and healing, from your perspective, it might seem like, man, I haven't experienced much of that. And now from another perspective, you might say, man, yeah, I've had incredible victories. I've healed from this. I've seen people heal from this. I've studied this. It's something I'm passionate about. And so today I hope to help your perspective when it comes to health and healing. So as we walk through this idea of healing, we got to talk about kind of what is health. Right? Now, the World Health Organization, which I don't love everything that they say, but they have a definition of health. And this is one of them. And I agree with this. It says health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Why this matters? So when you look right down here on this bottom chart, here's why this matters, my friends. It's saying health isn't just if I have an ache or a pain. Matter of fact, let's think about this for a second. Let's think about health. If I right now had maybe eaten some bad food maybe an hour ago or something like that, maybe some fish or something that was bad, my body is going to start to say, you know what, Ben, I think we have a problem. We got to get this out of you, right? And it's going to start to maybe make some attempts at doing that. It might give me a fever. It might make me vomit. It might make me have to go to the restroom, right? Because it's actually my body's not being dumb. Listen, my body's being amazing. It's not what's wrong with me. It's actually what's right with me. But a lot of times we think the symptom is the problem. So when we look at what is health, health being a state of of not just a state of physical, mental, and social well-being, or not this the absence of disease, not just, hey, I must be healthy because I don't have pain. If that was the case, we could all just take morphine and never feel pain. But here's the problem. Most of the time, you won't feel a symptom until you've lost like 60% of the function. So for example, you've all heard this story, you've heard of this. You might have gone to the dentist and they did an exam and said, hey, you have a cavity. And you say, man, I don't feel anything. Well, sure, you can have a cavity and not feel it. You can have cancer and not feel it. You can have a brain tumor and not feel it. You can have high blood pressure and not feel it. You can have high cholesterol and not feel it. You can have diabetes and not feel it. Matter of fact, they often will say, right, by the time you feel it, it's too late. By the time you feel the, cancer, tumor, by the time you feel a kidney function, by the time matter of fact, the number one, the first symptom of a heart attack, 75% of the time, is the actual heart attack happening. That's the first symptom that they had. And about half of those people die. So it's not a good approach to our health, right? And so we need to talk about that so we can make some better decisions. And make no mistake, my friends, when it comes to this and it comes to our health, there is an enemy out there, right? The devil, who is not interested in us having abundant health. It says that he came to destroy. It says that he came to devour. Matter of fact, it says that he came to kill. So when we are thinking about this, make no mistake, the enemy that does not want you healthy and well, okay? And so we need to talk about these concepts. So when we talk about healing, I just think this is fascinating. You just look at a picture. This is a person that injured their finger. And, you just watch it through time, right? A few weeks later, usually, right? This injury, this kind of gross, right? This cut on the finger, right? And a few weeks later, the body has rebuilt it. No doctor did that. No pill did that. No Band-Aid did that. Just the power of God inside of your body. Now, this is fascinating, right? Now, we'll look at maybe a broken bone, for example. When you look at that, here's a bone that was broken. It's a shoulder. And then a little bit later, it's starting to heal. And then it's kind of building this bulbous of bone around it. And then it remodels. And then 6 months later, you would never even know the bone was broken. You guys, that is so fascinating. Like if we could appreciate this. Like sometimes when people say, like, well, hey, I don't know if I still heal. Like if your heart is beating, you're still healing, right? Like if you cut your finger and it re-knits it together, do you know how fascinating and amazing that is? And so this appreciation of this is so important. Next slide. So here's how I try to explain this to people sometimes. When we're thinking about God's wisdom, God's plan, right? It says his ways are higher than our ways. It says that even his folly is even our best, our smartest is like his worst day, if you will, right? And so we have to remember this. So I sometimes think about, it's like one grain of sand is our intelligence, if you will, compared to just all of the wisdom of God. And I use that because it's important that we have that perspective, because if we don't, we may put our faith, we may put our hope into things that are not built to deliver that. If it's just in the faith of man, this has probably happened to you in your life before. You've maybe had somebody that you put your hope in and it let you down, but it says in the scriptures that that's not like our God. It says that he'll never forsake you, right? It says that he's an unchanging God. And we need to celebrate that, right? So he that made you, he that created you, he that knit you together in your mother's womb. It's a really important perspective that we have to have all the time. Now, there's times we're going to have pain. There's times we're going to have problems. We can look at plenty in the scriptures, right? From Paul's life to others, to the disciples. We're going to have struggles. We're going to have pain. We're going to have problems, right? But it's important that we know how to care for that. Now, this is amazing to me. So think about that grain of sand, okay? So inside of you, there's 100 trillion atoms in just one cell. And you have over 100 trillion cells. I'm not that good at math, so I won't even try to know what that is. And that's a lot. Okay, so think about this. You have 100 trillion cells, and in every one of those cells is 100 trillion atoms. Think about that. And all those trillions of cells and atoms are doing little processes every millisecond. To think that all goes on outside of any thoughts that you have, that all is happening without you thinking about it, that's happening without, any of your control, if you will, almost. So this is why when we think about the person that, if I use the example, if I had eaten some bad fish, my body starts to get rid of that. It's the body doing the right thing, not the wrong thing, okay? If I have a fever, this happens very often. This is a very common thing. You might, quote, get sick. A lot of times what we call getting sick is the body is actually healing. When your body has a fever, some of you might not know this. When your body has a fever, is a fever good or bad? Well, you might say it's not comfortable, but it's not bad, You might not want it, but it's not bad. I promise you that it's much better to have it than to not, because it's actually the body raising its temperature to kill off viruses, to kill off bacteria, to release chemicals inside of your body to help you heal. It's incredible. It's unbelievable. I assure you, you want a fever. It's actually the body doing something right, not doing something wrong. But what do? What do? We go, oh no, I have a fever. I better take a pill to lower that. You guys, my friends, listen. Now you have the choice. God gives you free will. You can do that if you want to. Okay? I would not want to lower a fever. I want the fever. Matter of fact, when I lowered the fever artificially, I'll give you a study on this. They found out that people that lowered their fevers actually increased their chance of hospitalizations and pneumonia. Why? Because it's actually stopping the body from healing. It's by keeping the temperature low, it allows the bacteria and the viruses to keep overrunning. Okay, so but this is how quickly this happens. As believers, as anybody in health, we go, man, I don't feel good. What should I do? And you've been conditioned to take something. You've been conditioned. Instead of taking a pill, a lot of us just need to take a nap. Or instead of taking a drug, we need to take a drink of water. We need to go on a walk. We need to rest. We need to ask ourselves, what are we doing that's causing